Hey, game changers. Welcome. I'm super excited to unpack a topic that I am very passionate about. And it's something that I get asked all the time when I'm out at keynotes and we go to Q&A or from people, after events and otherwise. And so I want to talk about kids and parents and sports because I get this all the time. And I think it's a really important topic, right? Like, you may be a parent with kids who play sports. You may have super young kids and you hope will one day play sports, or you have siblings whose kids, or your grandparents and your kids' kids play sports. Whatever your circumstances are, we often find ourselves, and I would even say, look, my lens is certainly sports, but look, you may have an opportunity to take some of this and lay it over top if your child plays the piano or the violin or does something else, sings, acts, whatever it might be. I think probably some of these things could apply. So I want to break down 10 things parents of kids who play sports need to know. And at the onset, I have to share this. For those of you that don't know, my husband and I, we've been married for 25 years, and our three daughters, 21, 20, and 20 now, that's a whole nother podcast, by the way, but they played at the high school level, basketball. I should back up and just share that my husband and I have been married for 25 years. We have three daughters. They're 21, 20, and 20 now. But, they played all kinds of sports. And then, at the pretty competitively basketball, even soccer, tennis, volleyball. And so as a parent, I sort of have that lens. As a sports agent, I certainly have that lens and had lots of conversations with my athletes about some of this stuff that I'm going to share. And then, I played tennis at Michigan State for 4 years. And so I sort of have my own experience kind of lens. And then there was a period where, and I do some, but not a ton, team building work with sports teams, college sports teams, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, and tennis, other sports. And so I've kind of gotten inside of some of those locker rooms and clubhouses too. And so I do feel blessed to have had a unique sort of lens into a myriad of stages, and even experienced it personally in my own life as a student athlete, and then with my girls. So I want to unpack 10 things that parents of kids who play sports, I believe, need to know. And things that, man, if our girls were super young, I would have loved to just have access to this to make sure that I stayed and kept focused on them. And it's a question I get so much, right? Like at a keynote I often get, right? I had an event last week. It was about 1,000 people in the room. We go to Q&A. A woman raises her hand right out of the chute and says, "Hey, I have a question." I said, "Great." She said, "My son is a baseball player. He loves baseball, and he's really pretty good." She said he's plays in all the travel leagues, and he's on one of the highest teams, and he's a pitcher, and he was really pretty good. And I just want to know kind of like what your advice would be for me in, trying to support him in his, continued progress as a baseball player. And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" She said, "Sure." I said, "How old is he?" 12. I sort of laughed. I said, "Well, here's the deal. I would say two things. One, don't let the coaches have him throwing slide balls and curveballs, sliders and curves, because there's all kinds of stuff that can happen to the arm." But I said, second to that, and I'm not a coach, but second to that, I've just heard my guys say that all the time. But second to that, I said, candidly, at 12, I think your role in it is, take him, pick him up, cheer for him, love him, be there with the snacks and the apples and the oranges, stay cognizant of effort and sportsmanship. But other than that, right, we've got to make sure he just continues to love to enjoy the game, right? At that age, I truly believe that is A1. I get the question often, should kids specialize, right? There's so much of that's happening so early now. What are your thoughts on that? I get, and here's the problem at the most fundamental level that I think we're all seeing and we know, right? But the ecosystem of youth sports today is completely insane, by the way. It's insane. It's insane. And so be gentle on yourself as you listen to these things, because it's so easy to get sucked in to the vacuum of madness, both when you're watching, when you're anticipating, when you're driving home with your kids, when you're home, when you're all of it. It is so easy. So be gentle on yourself as you listen to this. So, because the ecosystem is truly uncanny at some level, what we all, I know, see, experience, all of that. And I will say on the onset, I believe that sports is, particularly youth sports, as they go under 18, if they go and play at the college level, particularly kind of that, it is just a sandbox for life. To learn how to be curious, take feedback, be a part of a team, be resilient, fail, recover, work hard when you don't feel like it, discipline. I mean, it's in mindset. I mean, the list goes on and on. It is a sandbox for so many of the things that we have to do as an adult in life. So know that that's a little bit of my bias. I really believe that there is so much that we can learn from it, way beyond whether we're dropping our slider over the plate or not, right? Whether or not we're winning a soccer game or a match at 12 or not. There's so much more. So I want to unpack these 10 things. And I am pretty passionate about this topic, and so bear with me if I get going a little bit. So number 1, celebrate effort over outcome. In other words, don't talk about winning so much. That shouldn't be the focus. Focus on the effort. Focus on what they're doing before and after. Focus on the way they're preparing, the effort that they're putting in. Focus on the behaviors around the effort. The fight, whether it's on or off the game time field, right? Focus on that, the never give up mindset. Those are the things that we want to stay focused on. Focus on effort over outcome, because I will add to this, here's the bottom line, right? When we think about this in particular, your child has to want it more than you want it. Your child has to want it more than you want it. Now, if you hear nothing else, please hear that. They've got to want it more than you do. And trust me, I mean, I've seen the impact when they don't, what that looks like with the relationship with the child, with the who they become potentially as a teammate at the college level, right? Mom and dad, stuff it. I got you your full ride, right? And I've seen it, I've heard it, all of that. So I just want to encourage you to recognize they got to want it. They got to want it more than you want it. And the effort over outcome piece, man, is that a big deal? Big deal. And here's the thing. I just did a solo podcast on dopamine. Here's what I know chemically. When we acknowledge effort, we literally release dopamine, which helps keep us motivated. So when we have a choice to talk about winning or losing, or coaching them up from a tactical perspective, or acknowledging, hopefully, effort, perseverance, or anything from a sportsmanship or teammate standpoint, those are the things that allow us to focus on something that matters more, by the way. Certainly more in the current circumstances as they continue on potentially, but even more so as they move on from this little sandbox into bigger ones. Number 2, what do you want to eat? This was my favorite question I asked my girls when they'd get in the car after they'd played. And which is, right, like I get it, right? You get in the car and you want to, why didn't you play to our backhand more? Like, why did the coach pull you at 15-12? Like, why did you take that shot with 3:22 why did you take that? Why didn't you drive to the lane? Like, trust me, I've been there. But the right question is, what do you want to eat? Make that your first question when you get in the car with your child. Start there. I remember once my daughter lost a tennis match that she should have absolutely won, and she just didn't play well at all and couldn't kind of get herself turned back around. And when she got in the car, she knew that she should have beat this girl. I mean, she probably candidly should have beaten her with, if I'm being honest, a broom at giving the girl, the doubles alleys on her side, started every game. The girl could start every game at 30 love, and my daughter should have beat her, and she didn't. And so she gets in the car, and I know she's super curious. I played tennis, right? Like, I wonder what my mom's thinking. And I said, hey, honey, you got to be starving. What do you want to go eat? And she was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I'm dying. And I was like, what do you want to eat? And like 45 minutes later, she said, hey, Mom, like, by the way, like in that match, right? It was almost like, probably at some level, like, man, I can't believe she doesn't have anything to say about that match. And she'd grinded, she'd worked hard. She just, it couldn't, I can't even remember the skill or the gap. And like 45 minutes later, she goes, hey, Mom, by the way, like that match, like what do you think, like, what do you think happened? I mean, what do you think? And I was very careful, candidly, with that question, right? I spent about 60 seconds on it because there's a lot of people, and you'll hear me say this all the time, that can be their coaches. I'm the only one that can be her mother, her mom. And that's the role I wanted to play with all my girls. There's plenty of people that can coach them. I'm the only one that I want and that can be their mother. And that was the role that I was I really wanted to just focus on playing that role. So, I spent probably, 30, 60 seconds on kind of that. But again, really focusing on learning from it, talking to her coach about what happened, getting his feedback too. So that one is a really important one, I think. I heard a stat once, most kids quit sports, in their mind at least, on the drive home, with mom or dad lighting them up about whatever happened on the field or the court or the course. So what do you want to eat might help less kids quit in their heads and hearts on their way home. Number 3, being a good teammate is as important as, or I would argue more important than being a good player, right? Because again, this is a sandbox for life. We work in teams in life and families and in a corporate setting, in our communities, in our churches, in our schools. I mean, we are parts of teams. So that focus on that to me is remarkably important. And so what I believe is incredibly important to emphasize, particularly when they're young and as they're coming up, is what are they doing when the ball isn't in their hands, right? Like, what are they doing when they're not on the court? What are they doing after they miss? What are they doing if they're hurt and they're out for a month? Are they at the end of the bench and they don't care? Are they locked in? Are they cheering? Are they supportive? Are they pouring into their teammates? That to me is a really important, again, metaphor for life. Number 4, parents form a bit of a team too, don't we? Right? Like, think about it. I mean, when we found ourselves right in the bleachers, on the bench, in the stands, whatever it might be, on the sidelines, we kind of form a little bit of a team too. So trust me, our kids are listening to the things that we're saying at home about our team. And so I would just encourage you to stay highly aware of the kinds of things that are being said at home and away from your team in service of the way maybe it impacts the way your child shows up on their team. Number 5, as I said, and I mentioned this, I sort of jammed this up, but here we go. Number 5, lots of people can be their coach. No one else can be their parent. I learned this so early, particularly with my oldest daughter who was a tennis player, that sure, there was lots of things that I could coach her up on, but my role in it was to be her mom. And so if she ever wanted me to warm her up for a match, I had framed it up with her. I said, honey, if you want me to hit with you, you got to ask me. If you want me to warm you up, you got to ask me. If you want me to take a hopper of balls and go work with you, you got to ask me. I'm not going to drive it. You got to drive it, because I know that is the only way it's sustainable. Number 6, coaches watch an athlete as much or more when they don't have the ball. When they don't have the ball, what are they doing when they don't have the ball? The behavior inside of that is something that coaches, I can tell you from firsthand experience, whether it was with, a college level coach in football, basketball, tennis, whatever it is, pro level, trust me, they are watching your child when they don't have the ball. What are they doing on the bench? How are they treating other teammates? How are they treating the opponent? How are they reacting to bad calls? What are they doing when they don't have the ball? Again, these are things that we can continue to sort of thread through our role in raising an adult who has a skill set and a toolbox to lean into as they step into the real world. Number 7, I believe this, play a ton of sports. I do not know the stats on this, and I would love to do this and figure this out one day, but I would bet you if you looked at most of the people at the pro level, many of them, I would argue, and I do not know this stat, but I would bet that over half played lots of sports. Lots of sports. They played lots of different sports, but that's the problem, right? We as parents can get sucked into the ecosystem and the madness of they gotta just play this, they gotta play all season, all year round, right? No Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no Easter, none of that anymore, right? Like you gotta be, flying across the country over 1,000, by the way, teams that you could play, but you're gonna fly from Atlanta to LA to go play a team. That has always totally boggled my mind. But there we are, because you got to follow the money, right? Essentially. But I would encourage you, what they will do when they play other sports, it will make them stronger at their primary sport, right? Like whatever it is their primary sport, they will become better at it, I would argue, because they're playing other sports. Now, look, I'm not suggesting that if Johnny's got a full ride D1 offer and he's not insured, that you throw him out to do something else where he could get hurt and lose the scholarship. I'm not suggesting sort of things like that. But what I am saying is certainly before high school, I would even say lots of different sports. Don't let them get sucked in. I can tell you from personal experience, I didn't start playing tennis until my freshman year in high school when I made the varsity team, which was a kind of a shock to me and to everybody else. But I just kept winning these challenge matches, and I had really just started playing, but I loved it. I would practice. I'd ride my bike to the facility and practice. I'd hit against the wall and the ball machine and anybody that would hit with me. And I just loved the game. I loved it. And I began to love it more than the other two sports that I played, which was basketball and swimming. And so when I got to high school, I made varsity and I really began to love the sport. And part of it was forced on me because where I grew up in Michigan, tennis, basketball, and swimming were all in the fall. So I really had to pick one, and I was like, man, I really love it. And I think I'm sort of getting better at this. And so I did lock in on tennis in high school. But what I would encourage, and sometimes that is, in fact, the right thing to do. But what I would strongly encourage is certainly before that, play lots of different sports. It'll make them better at whatever the main sport is that they maybe want to do. And I think the other thing that's really important is this early specialization. The truth is that the risk of injury and burnout, super high, right? That, like I said, I would argue, and man, I got to figure this out. And if anybody has this information, please hit me up at info@mollifletcher.com, because I would love to see some of the stats on the number of sports that maybe big league baseball players played growing up. And there's got to be a study out there somewhere, but to me, I'm pretty confident. I can tell you with the guys and the gals that I represented, they played a ton. So again, number 7, play lots of sports. Number 8, don't fight their battles for them. In other words, if a conversation needs to be had with a coach or a teammate, your child needs to do it, not you. And look, I get it, right? The amount of things that maybe you want to say to a coach after a game or whatever it might be is a long laundry list of stuff. But your child needs to do it. And now, I'm not suggesting that if it's something like really serious that you shouldn't do it. If there's, really serious, right? Like maybe you need to do it. But I'm saying if it's about playing time or if it's about rotation or if it's about whatever, they need to do it. I remember once my daughter, a volleyball player, one of our twins, she had been playing great all season. I think she was a sophomore. And literally for no explanation from the coach to my daughter, the coach just benched her. She just got benched. And my daughter had no idea why, I mean, really, like when I just pulled back out of it and tried to be objective and go like, what? Like, huh? What happened? Like, is it something that I'm not seeing? Is it something off the court? Like, we couldn't. And she was a sophomore in high school, right? Like, she's still young and growing up and all that kind of stuff. But she, as it went on, was getting more and more frustrated by the fact that she wasn't playing and had no idea really why. And so she and I spent some time because she wanted to understand why she wasn't playing. And so she and I spent some time and I really just spent some time coaching her on how to go have that conversation. And I'll never forget sitting in the car as she had decided, Mom, I'm going to do it today after practice. And I was picking her up and it was dark and she waited until all of her teammates left and we talked through all this. And she waited for everybody and then she asked the coach, hey coach, can I talk to you for a minute? And I coached her on how to do that and she did it. And my belief in these kinds of difficult conversations is the facts are, my role in it is, and what I want is a great framework to consider. The facts are this, whatever the facts are, my role in it is, and what I want. And so my daughter did that and she had that conversation. And I don't even remember what the outcome even was, which is kind of hilarious too. But I share that only because guess what? In a hot second, she's going to need to have a tough conversation with a roommate in college, with a professor in college, with a boss, with a colleague. Like, let them practice when the stakes are low. Let them practice then. Because guess what? We all know as grown-ups, as adults, there's going to be plenty of difficult conversations to have in life, in business. What a great time to practice it as a sophomore in high school with a coach. Perfect. Remember, it's just a little sandbox for a bigger one. Number 9, and just, man, I mean, again, I'm passionate about this, right? So I'm probably being a little direct here, but don't live your washed up dreams through your kids. Check in with your passion, your pursuits, your energy, your intensity around moments with why is that really happening, right? Like, is it because I never really did it and now Johnny can? Like, you had your chance, man. Like, let your kids let them learn and grow in this sandbox like you did. But don't try to live through them. Now, that doesn't trump some of the other things that I've said. I'm just saying so often I think, and often unintentionally, we go, why am I so interested in this? Well, because I got cut from my high school baseball team, and you know what? My son's going to make it. Or I never could make it, and now they're going to, and I'm going to make darn sure that they do, right? Like, whatever the reason is, unpack that in your own head and heart so that you can ensure that you're showing up for your child, because it's about them, in my opinion, in this circumstance particularly, not you. Number 10, and please never forget this one, all of it, it's just practice for life. For the boss, for the colleague, for the need to be resilient, for the need to take feedback, for moments when they're going to have a lot of pressure in things that are really super real, right? It is a gigantic metaphor for life. It's a little sandbox where we get to learn all these incredible things: discipline, mindset, effort, curiosity, right? Team, all of that in this little sandbox with our parents there, hopefully, to help guide our effort over outcome. And all of these skills, it's just it's so fascinating to me, and why I'm so passionate about it is that it's so transferable to the real world. And by the way, for parents of girls, I've got to let you know this. There are two incredible stats. Here we go. A 2023 survey by Deloitte found, listen, this is cool, that 69% of women who played sports earn more than $100,000 per year and are in a leadership role inside of an organization. They played sports. 69% are in a leadership role, which to me, How terrific, right? 69% of women who played sports are in a leadership role and they're making over six figures. Not bad, right? Cool. And this is a 2015 E&Y survey found that, this is cool, 94% of women in C-suite positions played sports. 94%. Dang. So again, just a little sandbox to take to a big sandbox. All right, so I'm going to hit you real quick with these top 10 things parents of kids who play sports need to know. All right, you ready? I'm not going to break them down. I just did, but here they are in case you want to just pick this podcast up right here as you're driving into the driveway to take your son or daughter to practice or to a game. Or while you're there, if you want to remind yourself, grab this in your notes, whatever it might be. Number one, celebrate effort over outcome. Number two, what do you want to eat? That's your first question when you jump in the car and you leave the field or the court or the course. Number three, being a good teammate. Number one, celebrate effort over outcome. Number two, what do you want to eat? That's your first question when you jump in the car and head away from the court, course, or field. Number three, being a good teammate is as, or maybe more, I would argue, important than being a good player. Number four, parents form a bit of a team themselves, don't we? Recognize that. Create awareness around that. Number five, lots of people can be their coach. No one else can be their mom or their dad, their parent. Number six, coaches watch an athlete as much or more when they don't have the ball as when they do. Number seven, play lots of sports. Play lots of sports, right? I unpack that, but man, I think that's a big deal. Play lots of sports. Number eight, don't fight their battles for them. As a parent, let them have those difficult conversations. They'll learn and grow from it. Number nine, don't live your washed up dreams through your kids. Don't do it. Don't live your washed up dreams through your kids. Sorry, I know that's pretty direct. Number 10, never, please don't ever forget this one. All of this is just practice for real life. It's practice for all the things in real life. Listen, hit me with anything that comes up for you on this topic. I love to hear maybe what you do. Maybe we can add 10 more, 15 more. Hit me with things that you are finding along the way. Hit me with questions as you hopefully lean into some of these ideas as a parent of kids who play sports. And I'd love your feedback. I'd love your thoughts. I'd love to know what's working for you, because if I gather enough feedback from others, then heck, we'll have a V2 of this and I can add some more thanks to other parents' feedback. My Instagram is @MollyWFletcher. And my email again, hello@mollyfletcher.com. Hey, game changers, have an incredible rest of your week. And thanks for tuning in.